Crypto Caesar Capital. Hope you are well. It's the 8th of October 2023, and we are going to consider altcoins and alt seasons and Bitcoin dominance and things like that today. So hang on in there. So I'm looking now at the chart of it's called Others, okay, and it essentially looks at the total market cap of altcoins, okay, the top 150 altcoins minus the top 10, okay, so not taking into the top 10 altcoins. I think this chart is probably the chart that gives us the most truth, as it were, in the market now, because if you look at total 2 and total 3, whilst they are good to look at and to take into account, the problem with total 2 and total 3 is that they take into account the top 10. And of course, in the top 10 are stable coins, and stable coins are a huge force in dominance in altcoins in the market now. Of course, back in 2017, 18, 19, they weren't at all a huge force in the market, but now stable coins are a huge force in the market, and they continue to grow. So the great thing about the others chart that we're looking at now doesn't take into account those big stable coins. So just to be clear, others is the top 150 cryptocurrencies minus the top 10 in the market. So I think that this gives us a better view and a better look at actually what's going on in the altcoin market, because we don't have the stable coin dominance, etc., or the market caps of these huge stable coins potentially skewing our view of actually what's happening. Okay, so here we can see the chart of others. It's on a 1 week time frame. I put it on a line chart, so it's a bit easier for you to see. And we can see as well that we've got quite a bit of history here going all the way back to March 2014. And what we can see here is a clear rhythm in the altcoin market. And we can see here, I've mapped out the areas in red, which are areas of accumulation, and the areas in green, which are the expansion phases. Okay, so we've got accumulation, expansion, accumulation, expansion, accumulation. Okay, and what's very important when we look at this chart is the Bitcoin halving events, and you can see the Bitcoin halving events mapped out in the yellow vertical lines. And what's absolutely clear from past cycle data is that what happens with altcoins is that they they fall into this area of accumulation in the red zone, but then come the Bitcoin halving event, which is in postured in yellow here, they tend to break out of this area of accumulation. So we can see way back in 2014, there was this long area of accumulation. The Bitcoin halving event on the 9th of July 2016 happened, and then there was pretty much on that day a breakout immediately out of this area of accumulation. Then there was a big expansion phase. Then, of course, the bear market came, it dropped back into this area of accumulation. And the third halving happened on the 11th of May 2020. And pretty much to the day, it broke out of that area of accumulation, went into its expansion phase, dropped back down again. And now we are essentially still in the accumulation zone. Whilst, in my view, Bitcoin is technically now in the first stages of its upward trend, or its bull market, printing higher lows. The altcoins are still sort of stagnant, really. I mean, obviously there are some exceptions, but if you take a broad look at the altcoin market, some of them were at their lows in fact just a few weeks ago. So kind of stagnant, going sideways. But what's interesting about this chart is essentially what this chart tells us, apart from the fact that it's quite obvious when a Bitcoin halving happens, the altcoins tend to break out of their accumulation zone. What it also tells us is that pretty much now we've got 6 months, so 26 bars, so 1 bar is 1 week, so we've got 6 months, 26 weeks to essentially take position in altcoins before the next Bitcoin halving, and we can assume from previous data that when we get close to or just after the Bitcoin halving, we will break out of this accumulation range, and then the expansion phase will begin. That expansion phase isn't going to happen, it's not going to be parabolic straight away. But the expansion phase, in my view, looking at the past data, suggests to us that once we get to the Bitcoin halving, the expansion phase will start. So we've got 6 months to accumulate altcoins. I think, that's a fairly significant time. In our group, we took positions on Bitcoin back in November 2022. And we've held those positions in Bitcoin and Ethereum since then. So we've made a good trade there, and now we're ready to, or have been certainly over the last few weeks, starting to position ourselves in altcoins. But there is time left, but 6 months essentially is telling us that we have a maximum time of 6 months. It could be earlier that we break out of this trend. It could be a little bit later. But essentially, the maximum period, in my view, that we have is 6 months. But technically, it could come earlier. I think what's important as well is that we should have a look at Bitcoin dominance, because Bitcoin dominance has a lot to do with how the altcoins move, really, and it kind of works with the rhythm of the Bitcoin cycle as well. So you can see here again, so this is Bitcoin dominance. So this is the dominance of Bitcoin over the market. So it's Bitcoin's market cap versus the rest of the market, and what percentage of dominance Bitcoin holds over the market. And if we look historically, going back all the way to 2016, Bitcoin dominance was extremely high at that point at 95.31%. And then, of course, the biggest alt season of all time started, and Bitcoin dominance dropped. Okay. And arguably, well, actually, in 2018, the euphoric top in about the first week of January 2018 marked a low in Bitcoin dominance of 35%. But then Bitcoin dominance started to regain its dominance over the market. And by the Bitcoin halving in May, it was around about 70%. And then there was a little drop in dominance because, of course, there would have been the breakout in the others chart. So Bitcoin losing a little bit of dominance there over the market because the market caps of the altcoins were increasing. And then obviously Bitcoin had that big breakout in December where it breached its all-time high. And then gained some significant dominance over the market again to about 73%, and then started to lose it slowly. And then come sort of like April 21, March 21, alts really began to rip then, and Bitcoin dominance came all the way back down to 39%. So here we are at about 51% or 50.95%, so close to 51%, and moving to the upside. In my view, I think that, following past cycle data, in my view, I think that Bitcoin dominance needs to be a little bit higher before we can start thinking about altcoins really starting to rip. So in my view, I think that Bitcoin dominance it's not going to get as high as it did in previous cycles, because of course there are more and more cryptocurrencies being dropped into the market, and it would be hard for Bitcoin to exhume that dominance. But I think that we're looking at around about the 58% mark, and that is the area of support back in September 20 and May 2019. I think that's going to be resistance for it, and it's probably going to top out around about the 58-59% mark, and then it's going to start its descent down, and then when we get to the October 24 mark, I think alts are really going to start to rip then. And then Bitcoin dominance is slowly going to die off and come back down to the 4-year cycle high in November 25, and that's probably when the market tops out if we continue to follow the 4-year cycle. So the conclusion in this is that we've still got time. In my view, we have a maximum amount of 26 weeks before we will see any form of breakout. So that's a maximum time, so that means the breakout could happen before. But generally speaking, past cycle data suggests to me that we will probably continue in this range for a little bit longer, but we have a maximum amount of time of 6 months before the next halving, and every previous cycle, the altcoins have broken out of that area of accumulation just before or just after the Bitcoin halving. So we've got a maximum amount of time of 26 weeks. And I think that Bitcoin still needs to exude its dominance over the market. And believe me, if a Bitcoin ETF, spot ETF is approved, it will certainly take huge dominance over the market then. And I think that will give it the juice or the fuel to get itself up to the 58% mark. And then slowly it will start losing its dominance. And that is when the alts will start to move. So there we are. That's the video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join the group, please reach out to me on Twitter or send me a message via the website. If you want a copy of our 33-page research document on altcoins and the best altcoins we think will perform best this cycle, then if you join the group, that document will be free of charge. Okay, take care. Have a good day. Speak soon. Bye-bye.